When you are trapped in a situation, how do you get out? Logic, fear, and persistence are ways that motivate people to overcome their challenges and help them overcome their challenges. The first quote is about logic. It is a conversation between Romeo and the nurse. "What is her mother?" Romeo says. "Her mother is the lady of the house." Romeo fell in love with Juliet at first sight and thought nothing of it. He didn't think that anything could get in his way, and he didn't think anything of it or any challenges that he would have to face. He soon realizes that Juliet's mother is the Lady Capulet and is very strict about who Juliet marries. Lady Capulet also wants Juliet to marry Paris. Romeo needs to find a way to see Juliet using his logic so he doesn't get caught and killed. In this scene is a conversation between Romeo and Juliet and how Romeo shows persistence. Romeo and Juliet are talking at the bottom of Juliet's window. Juliet first says, "If they do see thee, they will murder thee." And Romeo says, "Alack, there lies more pearl in thine eye. Thank you 20 of their swords. Look thou but sweet. I am proof against their enmity." This shows that Romeo has persistence to see Juliet because of how much he loves her. He was taking the chance of getting killed just to tell Juliet how much he loves her and misses her. This also shows persistence because before he goes to Juliet's window of her room, he had to climb over the fence late at night in the dark. The last quote is about fear. It is when Romeo finds out that he has been banished. He says, "There's no world without Verona walls, but purgatory, torture, hell itself. Hence, banished is banished from the world. Is death mistermed, calling death banished? Thou cutt'st my head off with a golden axe, and smilest upon the stroke that murders me." In this quote, it shows Romeo's fear when he finds out that he's getting banished from Verona. He realizes that he is going to die because there's nothing for him. He says that there's nothing on the outside of the walls of Verona, no water, no shelter, and no food. This relates to the claim because he needs to channel his fear and find a way to stay in Verona and stay with Juliet. The book The Maze Runner also has characters that experience logic, fear, and persistence to overcome their challenges. The first part of the book shows fear. This quote is about Thomas. "Thomas backed into the corner once again, folded his arms, and shivered, and fear returned. He felt a worrying shudder in his chest as if he wanted his heart to stop and escape and flee his body. 'Someone help me,' he screamed, each word ripped from his throat raw." Right in the beginning of the book, fear was encountered. Thomas had no idea where he was and couldn't remember anything. His body was shaking and filled with fear. He had to find out what was going on even if he was scared to do anything, and he did that by yelling for help. The next part is logic. "My name is Thomas," he thought. That was the only thing he could remember about his life. He didn't understand how this could be possible. His mind functioned without flaw, trying to calculate his surroundings and predicament. Knowledge flooded his thoughts, facts and images, memories and details of the world and how it works. Thomas didn't remember anything except for his name. Then all of a sudden he starts having some flashbacks and sudden details that help him remember things. This uses logic because he needs to dig deep and put his mind to it and try to remember who he is and why he's here and where he is at the moment. The last part is persistence. Even as they ran, Thomas went through the code words again in his head and mind. Float, catch, bleed, death, stiff, push. They had to just make it a few dozen more feet. This shows that Thomas has persistence to get out of the maze and not mess up. He's going over the words he needs to remember in order to get out. Both stories had the characters using logic in them. In Romeo and Juliet, it was when Romeo found out that Juliet's mom was the Lady Capulet, and he had figured out how he was going to spend time with her without Lady Capulet finding out. And in The Maze Runner, it was shown when Thomas started having flashbacks about himself to try and find out where he was, how he got there. They also show fear in each story. In Romeo and Juliet, Romeo was full of fear when he found out that he was being banned and knew that he was going to die. And in The Maze Runner, it was when Thomas was in a place he had no idea where he was and didn't remember a thing. And last was persistence. Romeo showed persistence when he snuck over the fence and went to Juliet's window, knowing he had a chance of getting caught and killed. and Thomas had persistence when he had to remember the code words while he was running to get out of the maze. In conclusion, both stories had ways of young people overcoming challenges by using fear, logic, and persistence. Fear, logic, and persistence worked for the characters in each story because in the Maze Runner they got out of the maze, and in Romeo and Juliet they got to see each other.